Varsity Club, welcome back to another classic. Today we're going to jump through the NBA playoffs. I'm going to give you a breakdown of each team, each matchup, and who I think is ultimately going to win it all. But while I'm going through these, do me a favor, leave me some comments down below with your picks for the Eastern and the Western Conference, see who you think is ultimately going to win. Leave a little thumbs up in the video if you want to see more of this content, and subscribe if you haven't already. What's wrong with you? So if you haven't been paying attention at all, the NBA playoffs are going on right now. It's one of the best times of the year. Now we're using the NBA.com bracket challenge, so if you want that, just go ahead and Google it, or look in the description. I got the link down there. But the matchups are Phoenix versus the Pelicans, which I believe is a 1-1 split. You have Dallas versus Utah, I think is a 1-1 split. Golden State versus Denver, they were up 2-0. And then Memphis versus Minnesota, which is a 2-1 split. Miami, Atlanta, Miami's up 2-0. Philly's up 2-0 against Toronto. Milwaukee and Chicago, I think that's 1-0 getting ready. I think the second game is getting ready to be played. Then you have Boston, Brooklyn, which I believe the second game is about to be played as well. Keep in mind, I'm talking about the time of recording. This obviously could have been played out in real life. Okay, give me a break. Now, if you look at the matchups here in the Eastern Conference, I think Miami and Atlanta is a fun matchup that people are really excited to see. Can Trae Young sort of will his team to victory? The answer is no. Miami's going to win this one. They're already up 2-0. I know I'm late on doing this. Give me a break for that. But I'm going to say Miami in 5. Atlanta probably squeezes one out at home, but ultimately they lose in 5. Philly versus Toronto is a matchup that was a little bit more fun on paper than what it's actually playing out as. Joel Embiid is the NBA MVP in my opinion. You're crazy if you think not. He's been dominant from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And with the way James Harden is out there distributing the basketball and scoring at will, some too, he struggled a little bit. I like Philly a lot. They're one of my picks. I think he'll go a little bit deeper. I'm taking Philly in 5. Again, Toronto squeezes one out at home, but they ultimately fall in 5. Milwaukee versus Chicago is a matchup that another one that sounded so good on paper, but look, Giannis Antetokounmpo, what he's doing is unreal. That dude is a Greek freak for a reason. He's dominant. He's shooting threes again this year, which is just wild to me. He's become really a full player for what we really thought. Again, I'm going Milwaukee. We're giving them 5. It's 1-0 in that series, but I imagine, again, Chicago squeaks one at home. And then the final matchup in the Eastern Conference to look at is Boston versus Brooklyn. This is a lot more fun than I thought. And I'm going to go out a little bit. Maybe do something that people didn't necessarily think. You would think a 2-7 matchup is pretty much a favor of the two, but it's Brooklyn. They have Kevin Durant. They have Kyrie Irving. That's really all they have, though. This series, I think, will be probably one of the longest series we ultimately see. I think this one's going to go 7, but I'm going to give it to Boston, and it's going to be probably a little controversial, but I give Boston a 7-game series here. Over to the Western Conference, the most interesting matchup between Phoenix and the Pelicans just got even crazier because Devin Booker's out more than likely game 3 and 4 with a hamstring injury. Hamstrings are tough, and players rarely ever go from just having a hamstring injury to being 100% again, especially in that postseason. This could be a lingering thing. There's also rumors the Pelicans might have Zion coming back for like restricted minutes later in the series if it goes a little bit longer. You never know right now. But with that being said, I think Phoenix has a more complete roster than what the Pelicans have. I think a little bit of lemon booty is going to hit the Pelicans. I do think it goes 6 games. I think Phoenix ultimately ends up winning it out, but this is going to be a dicey one. Now, Luka Doncic's calf injury is really the big story between Dallas and Utah. Utah is a team that I feel like if they lose in the first round this year, they're going to break that team up. Gobert's probably gone. There's probably a chance we see Donovan Mitchell get traded. You never know. There's just a lot of uncertainty with that organization, and Coach Quinn Snyder is rumored to potentially be leaving for another job. And Luka's calf injury is interesting because he may not be back for game 3. It sounds like game 4 is more of the target for them ultimately, but Dallas is a really fun team. I think Utah has the firepower to get it done, but I think Utah is going to have to win this in 7 games. We'll see what ultimately happens with Luka, but I think it's anybody's game right now. The Golden State Warriors versus the Denver Nuggets. Oh man, this series. I get that Jokic is incredible. I think he's one of the greatest passing big men of all time. He's a superstar, honestly, in my opinion. But I don't think he's the MVP like a lot of people are giving him. The Warriors are starting to get healthy at the right time. Steph Curry, I think, is still in restricted minutes, but he's coming off the bench a little bit there. Klay Thompson looked like the old Klay Thompson. Whenever Klay Thompson smiled on the court, Jesus Christ, run for your life. And the work that Draymond Green is doing on Jokic is also incredible. To see that dude carve out the niche that he's got through the course of his career is wild. And to shut down a dude like Jokic as much as he has, again, it's a testament to how good he is as a defender, even this late in his career. So as you can probably imagine, we're going to go with Golden State Warriors winning this one. Again, I'm giving the Nuggets a single game that they ultimately win in Denver, but we're going to go ahead and see them win in 5. And then the Memphis-Minnesota series is one that I probably would have thought was a 4-0 sweep, maybe even a 5-0 game. But there's an interesting thing here. If you look at the 4 best players in that series, who are you going to ultimately say? Probably 1, Ja Morant. 2, probably Anthony Edwards. 3, Karl-Anthony Towns. Maybe you swap 2 and 3, but I think it's ultimately where it goes. And then 4, you probably go D'Angelo Russell. But that's 3 out of the 4 players being the best in the series. on the Wolves. I do think game 1 was a major shock to Memphis. They came back in game 2 and played considerably better, but ultimately Ja Morant is the superstar. I believe he can carry the Memphis Grizzlies, and that young team just needed to get punched in the mouth in game 1 to really answer back in game 2. And considering how big of a blowout game 2 was in comparison to game 1, I like Memphis a lot here. So we're going Memphis. I'm not going 5 and going 6. I think Minnesota definitely wins another game, but Memphis ultimately wins this series. So if we go back to the Eastern Conference, we have a stupid fun matchup between Miami and Philly, and we have Milwaukee versus Boston. These are two matchups that I think are must-see TV for any basketball fan. I really love Miami. I think they have the best coach in that series. Spoelstra is just, he doesn't get enough credit for how good he is. He's been a mastermind for years at this point, going from a video assistant to where he is now. Again, an incredible journey. Jimmy Butler's crazy. Tyler Hero's played well. Kyle Lowry, I think, needs to get things going a little bit more, but Kyle Lowry's still an incredible point guard on that team. Bam Adebayo doesn't get enough credit. Should have been a little bit higher up in the Defensive Player of the Year category, in my opinion. They have PJ Tucker. They have a lot of different characters on that roster that are very good and built to win a championship. And then you have Philly. Like, there's just something about what Joel Embiid has done this year, along with James Harden. As much as I love Miami, and I love them a lot, I'm going Philly here, and I'm going Philly in 6. This is going to be a hard-fought, tough series with a lot of blood, a lot of technical fouls, I think, ultimately called, but I'm giving it to Philly in 6. Then we move on to go against Milwaukee and Boston. This is a stupid fun series. I think you're going to see Giannis and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who Jaylen Brown's been playing out of his mind, as well as Marcus Smart, really get things going. The interesting domino for this series, I think, is Al Horford, and I didn't think I'd be saying that in 2022. Al Horford has played, honestly, really well so far in the first couple of games of the Brooklyn series, and he's honestly turned back the clock a little bit. I didn't think he could still play. If Horford can give Boston buckets, I think it helps him out a ton, but ultimately, we're talking about a Milwaukee Bucks team that is just complete. They've got a great defender in Drew Holiday who can also score well. Bobby Portis has been a great role player. Giannis is who Giannis is. We know what we're going to get from Lopez. I think you're going to see Milwaukee ultimately get it done. So I'm going Milwaukee, similar to Philly, in 6 for this one. As you look back at the Western Conference, we now have a Phoenix team against a Utah team that is, you know, a little bit in disarray. But I'm going to assume Devin Booker is back at this point. I think Booker is one of the most underrated and underappreciated players in the NBA. If I was building a roster, if you got a healthy Devin Booker, I'm probably taking him within, at worst, my top 3 picks, possibly even my top 2 picks at that point for some of the younger players under like 25, 26. But I'm going to go, I don't know. CP3's been a legend. He's been so good. DeAndre Ayton is playing out of his mind. Gobert has not really looked like Rudy Gobert of past. Donovan Mitchell still getting buckets. They have some injuries. Their shooting isn't what it was. Clarkson obviously has to be big for them. But I think I'm going to Phoenix again, similar to what I saw on the previous side on the Eastern Conference in 6. And then we have the Golden State Warriors versus the Memphis Grizzlies in what is going to be a fun matchup. We're talking about elite shooting. Jordan Poole, also, I have not given him enough credit for how good he's been in helping lift this Warriors team up. This dude, again, is better to join the Splash Brothers. It's better, instead of just being twins, it's better to be triplets out there. Memphis is a stupidly difficult team, and I really think this series could go 7, but I'm going Golden State. They have, again, too many older players that know how to get the job done in the postseason. Draymond's going to be, I think, a major factor in there, and if Ja Morant can get more help, I don't think they can ultimately get past the Golden State Warriors. So now what we're ultimately looking at here is Phoenix versus Golden State, which is crazy, again, assuming Devin Booker's healthy. If not, things might have shifted a little bit. And then we have Philly versus Milwaukee. We're going to start with the Eastern Conference and Philly versus Milwaukee, which I think is really the matchup everybody wants to see. Giannis going in there being crazy. Joel Embiid going there and being crazy. James Harden really having, I think, his way going up against some guys that aren't going to be able to really guard him a ton. They'll put Drew Holiday on him, but Drew Holiday should not be trying to guard James Harden for an entire game. That's going to be too much work across an entire series. Not to mention Drew Holiday was probably just switching over and having to guard either Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum in a couple different matchups. He's going to be spent, I think, at this point. And we look at Philly, they have Matisse Thybulle, who we haven't even talked about at this point, who's a great young defender. They're going to have some other bodies they can ultimately throw at Giannis. I think they're one of the most well-equipped teams to really give Giannis some problems, but also make it a little bit harder for him when he's on defense, because he has to guard some of these dudes that are going to be packing the paint. I think Giannis struggles a little bit in foul trouble. I think Philly ultimately pulls this one out, but a very tough, memorable series that Philly wins in 7 to go to the NBA championship for the first time in a very long time. And then in the Western Conference, you're going to have the Golden State Warriors versus the Phoenix Suns. I love so much about both of these teams, but again, I'm operating under the assumption that Devin Booker is mostly healthy, but still with some lingering issues. I think Golden State gets the job done here. They're going to go in 6. I think Curry is going to give a lot of problems for them. I think Klay Thompson shooting the way he has, Jordan Poole. There's just too much firepower ultimately with the team that doesn't even have James Wiseman. This is going to be a very fun series, but again, I think it ends up in Golden State in 6. And then we have the NBA Finals between the Golden State Warriors and the Philadelphia 76ers, a 3 seed versus a 4 seed, a matchup that I don't think a lot of people really expected. We've talked ad nauseum about Golden State and how talented they are from a shooting perspective. I think their defensive rotations have honestly been pretty good. You also see what Draymond has done this year again, where he was kind of the laughingstock in the NBA a season or two ago. Now Draymond has all of a sudden reinvigorated himself. And with this whole unit just kind of working together, whenever you have Curry, Clay, Draymond, it's just a core that's hard to bet against. But we haven't even talked about how talented Tyrese Maxey is for the Philadelphia 76ers. I think he's going to obviously give them some problems. That dude can get to the bucket at will. He's got a really nice shooting stroke right now. Tobias Harris has been significantly better than I thought he was going to be in the postseason. There's a lot of things to love about Philly too. I think the one edge that Philly ultimately has is that they have Joel Embiid. No one can guard Joel Embiid really in the league. Maybe there's a couple of guys you might argue, but I don't think really a lot of people can guard that dude. He's the bona fide MVP. He's had the best season of his career, and you love to see it. Embiid will give Golden State Warriors a ton of problems, but I think the other part that they're going to have some struggle with from the Philly side is that they don't really have the outside shooting, I think, to keep up with what Golden State has. You're going to need James Harden to have, I think, an historic performance, as well as Joel Embiid doing what he does, which has been absolutely incredible so far this season. Maxey has to step up big. He's now in the NBA Finals the first time in his career, obviously being a young player. Thibel's got to be huge in the defensive end, switching probably over on Curry and on Clay a little bit. Draymond's going to have some fits, I think, trying to guard Joel Embiid in the post, and Joel might get him into early foul trouble. This is a series that goes at least 6, if not 7. But if I have to pick one single team to win the NBA Finals this year, my prediction ultimately is that the 2022 NBA champion will be, and this hurts me to say, the Golden State Warriors in 6 games. Philly's incredible. I love what they're doing. I would love to see Joel Embiid get an NBA championship, especially at this stage of his career after all he's been through, what he's done for the fans in Philly. But I think Golden State's a little bit too tough. Golden State wins this one in 6 games. It's an incredible NBA Finals, but Philly falls just short in an incredible final game. And the Warriors, well, it's not just quite the dynasty yet again, but they get at least one more dance at running the NBA championship. Am I right? Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments down below with what you ultimately think. I want to know what you think is going to be the Eastern Conference and Western Conference championships, as well as who plays for the NBA championship, who's going to get the Finals MVP. I'm going to go with the Finals MVP actually being Jordan Poole, not Curry, not Clay, not Draymond. I think for the Warriors to win, it has to be Jordan Poole stepping up in massive minutes at this point. He's going to have some really fun matchups against that second unit in Philly. So Jordan Poole will be my NBA MVP, which is, again, a bold prediction, but this will be a bold playoffs in my opinion. But again, leave me your feedback, your comments down below. I want to know who you think you have ultimately winning it all, who the MVP is going to be, and what you disagree with and what you ultimately agree with. I want to hear all that, but at the end of the day, the finals will be great basketball for everybody. Be safe, be smart, tell somebody you love them. Catch you guys on the next one.